The content of this video was developed by an operational group of law enforcement and fire department hazardous materials and CBRN subject matter experts within the National Capital Region. The purpose of this video is to provide first responders with a greater understanding and knowledge when responding to potential chemical, biological, and radiological events. This brief video will provide basic information that will assist law enforcement officers, fire and emergency medical personnel, and other responders in making an appropriate situational size-up when dealing with unknown hazardous situations. This video will discuss potential biological, chemical, and radiological incidents and considerations that will inform or enhance your situational or operational awareness. Biological. Perhaps the most prevalent unknown hazardous situation involves unknown powder substances. Unknown powders are a daily threat to first responders, primarily due to widespread drug use. The potential exists for emergency responders to run powder calls that are thought to be a biological event. Shortly after September 11, 2001, anthrax was sent through the U.S. mail system to a number of different locations throughout the United States, resulting in 5 deaths and 17 others infected. Although powdered biological agent is a possibility, it is quite remote. The important aspect to remember when dealing with a biological agent is there is usually an incubation period of a day to weeks before signs and symptoms present. Additionally, for several of the biological agents, there are treatments available. The sooner treatment can be initiated, the better the outcome. If a powdered biological agent is suspected, the materials should be tested. On-site identification can be presumptive and normally can be performed by area hazardous materials teams. This is a resource you should be familiar with and understand how to contact to gain additional assistance. Confirmatory testing will be done in a laboratory setting. If you are exposed, you will undergo medical monitoring. If bioterrorism is confirmed, the full force of the federal government will be utilized to minimize societal impact. The easiest way to prevent exposure and contamination is to not come into contact with the substance and remove yourself and others from the immediate area. If the situation does not allow you to leave the immediate area, you should wear gloves, cover exposed skin, and utilize respiratory protection. An N95 mask at a minimum, P100 mask is preferred, and eye protection. Cover uniform and exposed skin with water-resistant coveralls if available. These items provide greater protection for inhalation and absorption routes. If powders are present at a particular scene, one should survey the environment to determine if people are displaying any signs of illness and/or are not acting normal. If medical complaints or unusual behavior is exhibited, it may be related to the powder that is present. Consider requesting additional units to include fire and rescue, hazmat, as well as additional police resources. Any movement near the powder has the potential to aerosolize the powder. Consider closing windows, doors, and shutting down any HVAC systems to minimize the aerosolization of the product. If any powder gets on your person, carefully remove, being sure not to brush powders toward your face or other responders, and wash with soap and water and follow with proper hygiene. If at any time you begin to feel what could potentially be a side effect of the unknown powder, remove yourself from the immediate area and contact emergency medical services and a hazardous materials team. Chemical. All first responders need to pay close attention to dispatch information and notes about the call on mobile computer terminals. Certain pieces of information should heighten your awareness en route to the call. For example, multiple people down, medical calls with unusual smells or conditions. Drugs in the form of powders can produce immediate or delayed symptoms. Fentanyl and carfentanil would be immediate and can be weaponized similar to chemical weapons. First responders should maintain a high index of suspicion if multiple victims present with respiratory distress that occurs with a rapid onset. Assume the worst and take the necessary steps to prevent exposure and contamination. If an opioid overdose is suspected, first responders should consider immediately administering Narcan if available. Remember, protect yourself first, and multiple doses may be needed. Do I need to initiate a rescue or address a threat? Deny entry unless there is need to initiate rescue or address a threat. Also, trying to contain patients exiting an incident scene to one isolated area may help limit cross-contamination. If entry into a hazardous environment is necessary, you will need to consider the totality of the circumstances, including the potential harm to you from exposure to the product. Entering into an enclosed environment, you will likely encounter higher concentrations of that product. Patients located outside will be less affected than the patients inside the enclosed environment, but this will depend on total dose and concentration of the material. Minimizing your exposure to the product and contacting appropriate resources, including fire and rescue, hazmat, and additional police resources should be the goal. Your goal? Don't become another victim. Your training, knowledge, and PPE should provide the baseline for making this decision. Putting yourself knowingly in harm's way will impact other first responders. If you happen to be contaminated, be cognizant of how you feel. Remove yourself from the area. Remove outer layer of clothing and get decontaminated. Your gear will be contaminated as well. If you have a face piece or air purifying respirator, make yourself aware of your limitations and shelf life of the filter cartridge. Simply having a filter doesn't mean you are protected in every situation. Radiation. Low levels of radiation are around us every day, everywhere we are. In emergencies where there is radiation placarding present, detection and monitoring should be prioritized. Without proper detection equipment, there is no way to detect the level of radiation. If radiation is suspected, notify first responders with radiation detection capabilities. If detection capabilities exist, follow your current policies and procedures. If an explosive event occurs, assume radiation could be present until proven otherwise, and proper respiratory protection should be utilized as a precautionary measure. We recognize that radiation events are complex and scary, but they are quite manageable. Identify radiation subject matter experts you can reach out to before the fact. Points to consider for types of responses. Be guided by your departmental policies, but life safety is our primary consideration. Do not eat, drink, smoke, or use the bathroom while responding to these events. For all situations discussed in this video, crime scene preservation is key. Securing contaminated law enforcement weapons should be a consideration. Exposure to chemical, biological, or radiological substances will require some level of decontamination. Understand your jurisdictional and regional capabilities.